welcome back to the show. I'm Luke, this is Ryan, and today, like last time, instead of talking about Hollywood Studios, we're going to talk about EPCOT, kind of just the state of the park, the present right now, the transition that it's going to for the future, and even probably a little bit of the past too. So I'm excited about today. This is one of our favorite parks.
Yeah, Epcot is the most unique park, I think, at Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
And where does it rank for you in terms of the four?
For me, personally, number 2.
Really?
But my ranking of 4 is a lot of people don't agree with.
What is your ranking?
Hollywood, Epcot, Animal, and then Magic.
Magic is your least?
Yeah.
Dang.
But I still like it. It's my 4th favorite park in Orlando.
Right, well,
with that.
over Universal.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, Epcot right now, it breaks my heart a little bit. It's in a bad shape. It's a mess. And some of those projects that I think they were working on aren't necessarily going to happen anymore.
Probably not, if it hasn't already been started.
Right. And but look, regardless, Epcot is, I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial, but I think Epcot is the best concept for a theme park in the history of the world of theme parks.
I think it's the most unique, and they pulled it off.
They did. Just the sheer scale of it, the sheer scope and everything that park encompasses is amazing, and it's incredible that they pulled that off. It will no one will ever do something like that again. It's so ambitious. The whole project, having the World Showcase, and then I guess Future World isn't really the same as it was, but at the time it was very impressive.
And it will be. I mean, it depends what projects get cut and what don't, but you gotta imagine by the end of the transformation, Future World will again be a really cool place.
That's true.
Regardless of opinions on IP or whatever, I think still the Festival Center, which I assume will still get done because they tore up that middle part.
Yeah, they had to put something there.
Something will be there that I'm sure looks cool. The new entryway will be awesome.
Yeah, and they're actually going ahead with the crystal,
the fountain.
The fountain, yeah.
Good.
Right?
Yeah.
I think I heard that. I read that online.
Guardians is safe because
it's
that's
built
really far along.
Yeah. How do you feel about the Guardians ride going in Epcot?
So at first I was like, I mean, IP's gonna go to Epcot. I'm not surprised. But at first I was like, I don't know about Marvel there. I would have thought more Hollywood Studios, even Magic Kingdom. Because I feel like Guardians would fit in Tomorrowland there. But the more I think about it, I'm like, you know what? I think it'll be cool and it'll kind of fit. And it's the new direction of Epcot to have IP.
Right.
And I'm glad that it's at least one that, I don't know, I feel like it kind of fits.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would rather have seen it in Hollywood Studios, to be honest. But I'm sure it'll be a fun ride. I acknowledge that the direction they're going with the parks now is it's less about the theme of the park and more about the story of the individual attractions.
Right.
So I think they'll do a really good job with it. The Guardians ride at California Adventure, which is where I got this hat, is so good. I'm sure anyone watching this knows, but it's they gutted the original Tower of Terror ride and they overlaid it with Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's so much fun. It's just the perfect, and I think I've said it before, Guardians of the Galaxy is such a good IP for theme parks because you have that music it's built into the narrative. The characters are fun.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's in space. It's such a good IP for the parks.
I think even though I'm not crazy about Marvel being in Epcot did need a big e-ticket to kind of draw people there, because when it's not festival time, you hear people joke about Diet Epcot. When there's not a festival, it's empty.
That's
and
true.
Nobody's there. And then Frozen came along, and now look, people are going to the World Showcase even when festival isn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I always remind myself that these parks are built for the average guest and not as much the diehards.
Yeah.
Which is hard to think about sometimes.
Which is ironic because now it's mostly diehards going.
So they better change some stuff for us. But
yeah.
I still think it'll be good for EPCOT to have something. I mean, they got e-tickets, Soarin', Test Track, but nothing that kind of people hold in the same conversation as like Flight of Passage or Rise or even Smuggler's Run, you know?
Yeah, and which is interesting because you were telling me, and this makes perfect sense, the way that they did it to where there's going to be like a huge e-ticket in each one of the 4 parks, right?
Yeah.
Whenever they finish Guardians and Tron.
Right, because, you know, pre-COVID, the idea was all this would be done for the 50th, and so you would have essentially Flight of Passage, which is still new. I mean, it's only been around for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Star Wars, you know, both of those plus Mickey, and then Guardians and Tron. So each park would kind of have a shiny new thing.
Right, which is really smart, and
it's easy to advertise.
It is. Yeah. Come to each one of the 4 parks. Spend money on every single park.
Because while we love those old rides at EPCOT, it's kind of hard to advertise Soarin' in the same ad as like Rise.
Oh, for sure.
Hey, come see this feat of Imagineering and also an old ride that is still good, but I don't like the new version of Soarin', so.
I don't care for it much either, but it's only because of the special effects.
Oh yeah, it fits better in EPCOT theme-wise.
Mm-hmm.
If they would just fix the like curving of things, if you're not right in the dead center, I would probably enjoy it.
I would for sure enjoy it more because the California version, Soarin' over California,
was so much better.
Was so good. I rode that ride every single time I went to EPCOT, but now I skip it most of the time.
Especially because that line feels like it takes forever too.
Yeah.
Even with a fast pass.
Yeah, the queue line for that one is just, it's so boring.
Well, because, and I've heard it's like a mix of, in the queue there's elements from like famous airports around the world.
Oh,
if you look at photos, you'll probably know because you've been to more than me. But there's some, like the wooden ceiling is supposed to be one. I'm sorry, I don't remember where they are.
Dang.
But, so I heard that explanation, and I said, that's cool, except waiting in an airport is always so boring.
It is boring.
Like, I know you work in the industry, so you're in there more than me, but...
so I can say on good authority that airports are boring.
I don't want to be, I want to be where I'm going.
Right, exactly.
That's why you wander around at gift shops, like, I need something to do.
Yeah, they need to spruce it up somehow. I don't know how you do it, but I don't know. Soarin' just needs a massive overhaul. I'm sure it'll get one eventually.
I mean, the queue for the one in Tokyo looks awesome.
Oh, right. I have not seen the artwork for
it's
that.
Pretty cool. It's like the history of flight, kind of.
Oh, okay.
And it looks kind of like a museum. That's how I would describe it from the pictures that I saw.
Well, that's kind of how the one in California is.
Okay, so it must be pretty similar.
Yeah, and
shows like old planes and stuff.
Yeah. And both of those sound better than the one in Florida.
Which is a hallway with trivia on the walls.
Essentially. But yeah, anyways, so EPCOT, it's interesting because we both did not grow up, we weren't born in time to see like the old EPCOT, like when it was Epcot Center, and but a lot of people who are older than us are nostalgic to that version of the park. But now it's sort of going in a new direction, and what do you think about like all the IPs in there? Not necessarily just the IPs in EPCOT, but also like they're definitely going away from educational and more towards thrill rides. Like, what's your take on all of that?
So I remember being a kid. I'm trying to think like the first time that I went to EPCOT. Don't remember the year. Probably the late 90s, early 2000s. But I remember going, and the EPCOT days I was never as excited about as Magic Kingdom or I don't think Animal Kingdom was open when I first went to Disney, but Hollywood Studios and those. Just because I didn't think there was that many rides there, and I knew that the focus was more educational and that I wasn't as excited about. You know, it's hard when you're like a 7-year-old kid and the day before you're riding Big Thunder Mountain. So I feel like Epcot, at least that old version, was more interesting to adults, because as I got older I really loved it, and it rose to being one of my favorite parks, especially like taking time to look at the details in the countries and stuff. So I think that I'm probably not the only person that experienced that.
Right.
I know there's a lot of people that did like it as kids, but you gotta think with the implementation of IP throughout, it is to kind of remove that view that it might be a more adults park.
Yeah, it kind of makes it more accessible to people.
I think where families want to go.
Right, with small children, like, I get it. I totally get it. For me, it's basically the same. Like, I never was a huge fan of Epcot when I used to go to Disney as a kid, but just the older you get, I think that park really grows on you.
Yeah, it does. And I hope they keep it in a way that it can still appeal to the adults. And I think they are, because even with like Frozen in Norway, you can still go in that little museum and learn about like the myths and, you know, try the food in the bakery and stuff. But I think as much as I'm, you know, I said I'm not too excited about IP being in everything, I do understand it, because I think it'd be a hard sell. Like if I had a little 6-year-old kid to be like, let's ride Spaceship Earth.
Right.
It's a travel through time and how people communicate.
Right,
know?
but I think a point that nobody ever brings up is, so it all comes down to what your opinion of, is it okay for, like, and obviously we don't know the answer to this, but should Disney make every park so it's the same amount of accessibility to all demographics? Like, is that a good or bad thing? Like, is it better to have like Magic Kingdom, which is sort of like for younger kids, Hollywood Studios, which is for teens, basically, Epcot, which is for adults, or do you just make everything for everybody, and then you kind of water down the content in all those places, but maybe more people will like it.
I think it's a fine line to walk, because they'll never come out. That's why they'll never do like a Halloween Horror Nights type event, because they'll never come out and say this event is only for these people, older groups or younger groups. So I think some of the parks naturally fall into those. Where Disney, if you were to ask somebody, or if I was at work, I would say, yes, the parks are for families and for kids.
Right.
But off the record, you know, I probably wouldn't bank on spending a whole day at Hollywood Studios with your 7-year-old kid. They're probably not going to ride much.
Right.
So I think they have to figure out how to walk that fine line.
It does seem like it's a fine line, because you can't just expect people with small kids to show up to the World Showcase. And the parents start drinking, and then what are the kids going to do? But at the same time, you can't just water down everything so it just feels like the same, you know, which I think I think Disney's they're going a little bit more towards that like danger zone, where it's just like all the parks are going to feel the same if they keep doing what they're doing. But I don't know. It's definitely a fine line, and
I think what's cool too about the parks is that you can make them how you want to make them if you really try. Like, I'm thinking, I know we're not talking about it, but Animal Kingdom. And, you know, if you're super into animals, that can be like such an educational visit.
That's
or
true.
You could see 0 animals the whole day and hang out in Pandora and Everest and Dino Land, and that's fine too, and that's cool. And I like that you kind of like choose. And I feel like Epcot has the potential to be able to be that way. I mean, when I go, I don't always ride the rides. Sometimes I just walk around the countries.
Right.
And even when they open like Ratatouille and stuff, I'm not gonna ride it every time I'm there.
See, I like the Ratatouille thing because
it fits better.
It fits so much better than Frozen. And look, I get that Arendelle is supposedly based on a Scandinavian whatever town, and so it loosely fits in there, but it always bothers me that it's there. But with Ratatouille, it's really, that movie is really based on the culture of France. Now, whether it's 100% accurate or not, who are we to say as Americans? But it
at least it actually takes place in Paris.
Yes, exactly. At
Not
least
like fictional.
Well, at least it's trying.
It's like France. Yeah.
Right. So that kind of stuff doesn't necessarily bother me too much. Yeah, I do wish that we would get another EPCOT World Showcase Pavilion. I mentioned Brazil in a previous podcast.
That would be cool.
But who knows now with the current state of things.
I do wish, though, that every pavilion in World Showcase did have a ride.
That'd be awesome.
And I will trade off them putting in IP from movies based in those countries just for that.
Right.
Like, I'm willing. And they could do it better than Frozen. I mean, Mulan could be in China. That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That fits. And they even got the live action coming out. So, do
I
that
know.
version. I'm cool.
There's your synergy.
What else? Tangled could be in Germany.
Is that based in
I
Germany?
think it's supposed to be in Germany. Maybe not. I don't know what other German. There's probably. Oh wait, Snow White.
Snow White. That's
there
true.
we go.
That's true.
Do that.
Well,
what else?
Going by the Frozen logic, though, you can literally just do anything that looks like the country and just put it in there.
Or wherever the fairy tale originated.
Yeah, right. So what do you think about them canceling the Mary Poppins attraction?
Because that makes me sad.
That's confirmed, right? That's definitely canceled.
I think they said it's either postponed or canceled. Probably canceled because, first of all, we didn't know what, like, attraction is such a loose word.
Right.
They never said, like, it's a ride, is it a walkthrough, is it
Mm-hmm.
a show? But it kind of makes me sad because that was an IP that fit.
Yeah, for sure.
Something else. There's not really much to do in the UK pavilion besides eat or get a drink.
Yeah, it's one of the weaker pavilions for sure.
It is, yeah. And so, from that standpoint of just giving guests another thing to do, especially with kids, I thought that was a cool idea.
Yeah. And what do you think about the... See, I'm actually... It's going to sound terrible to say, but I'm glad that they're not redoing Spaceship Earth.
Really?
That is canceled,
I
right?
was looking forward to that. Yeah, I was looking forward to that, to see what they would do. They said it was going to be no IP.
Yeah, but Disney doesn't have a great track record of, like, plussing attractions, I don't think.
That's true.
Look at Soarin'.
Yeah, that's true.
Look, the thing is, when Disney builds an entirely new attraction, and I'm not even talking of IP, non-IP, just when they build an entirely new attraction, it's usually pretty good. But when they overlay attractions, it usually dips in quality a little bit. And so I am kind of glad. And I think for me, just personally, you might feel differently, but the one silver lining, I think, in the whole COVID crisis shutdown, and I think that there is, like, I think we were getting so much new stuff, the last 3 or 4 years, that some stuff, like, really just sort of slipped under like, nobody really noticed it. And I think it'll be good for us to just, like, have some time with all this new stuff and to let it just sort of sit and, like, really enjoy it. Because you look at what happened with Flight of Passage, like, that was everyone's favorite ride for, like, a year, 2 years.
Yeah.
And then nobody's talking about it anymore. And then same with rides. Like, for a couple months, it was the hot new thing. And then, boom, Mickey's and Minnie's came out. And it's like, I think it'll be nice to just sort of sit back and enjoy what we have for right now.
Yeah, I agree. Especially because, like, they'll still do the smaller things, I'm sure. Once crowd levels go back to normal and once the money starts flowing again. But I think, like, as far as big E tickets, you're probably right. We won't see those after Tron and Guardians. I anticipate a good few years.
And just even look at something like Navi River Journey or Smuggler's Run,
Dude,
right?
I love Navi River Journey.
Those, like, can you imagine if we would have gotten either one of those rides, like, 10 years ago or something?
People would have lost their minds.
People would have lost, but since it's lumped together with, like, all of this new stuff, it's just like we take it for granted.
Those rides being in lands where the main ride is arguably the top 2 attractions.
Yeah, right.
And the whole resort,
right.
It doesn't matter if you put one or the other above. They're the 2 best.
Yeah.
So it's hard for Navi River and Smuggler's Run
exactly.
to sit 100 yards away from these rides.
right.
Because you get off it and you're like, wow,
Yeah.
that was the best theme park ride I've ever done in my life.
Yes.
Hey, let's do this one. And then you're let down immediately.
Yeah. But if you wouldn't have rode that first one before, like, you know, if you rode Navi River before you rode Flight of Passage, or Smuggler's Run before Rise, it's like, wow, these are really good attractions.
Yeah. And it fits better. So if you've never done them, do that order.
Right.
If you can. Because it will.
Mm-hmm.
It's better. Don't expect Smugglers to be Rise, and don't expect Navi to be Flight of Passage.
No. That's a really good point. And that adds to, like, my point, like, it'll be nice to just sort of not take stuff for granted for a little while. And yeah, it sucks that we're probably not going to get a lot of new stuff in the next foreseeable future. But, you know, they're definitely going to do Tron.
And Guardians.
And Guardians, because those are far along.
So, I mean, you're looking at, we've got 6 rides that people will say are like some of the best in the world.
Yeah. And I do think this era of Imagineering will be revered as one of the best eras in, because, I don't know, you sort of have like the Walt era where you have Haunted Mansion and Pirates. Those are like the standouts from that era.
Right.
You have like the Eisner era where you have like Splash Mountain and Big Thunder. Those are sort of like the standouts.
Well, you got Studios and Animal Kingdom too out of that.
Right. And then I do think this era where we got, presumably if they, which they probably will, finish Tron and Guardians, we're going to have 4 of like, we hope. We know for Tron because we've seen the footage of Shanghai.
That it's at least a really cool coaster.
Yeah. And we will have gotten like 4 of the greatest attractions ever in these last 5 years. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I really think like as much, you know, as we make fun of Chapek and Iger and stuff at their expense, I think that when you look back at their era in like 15, 20 years, we're going to be like, man, we got a lot of good stuff out of that. I don't agree with everything they've done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the theme park side. Like, we're not even talking about the studios, which...
Well, the studios they've killed.
They've destroyed everybody else.
Yeah, killed in a good way. Like, they have absolutely destroyed the competition.
I was looking at pre-COVID, my dad and I were just curious at the, like, highest grossing films of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Just talking about movies. And it was like 7 or 8 were Disney movies in the top 10.
That's insane.
Like, owned by Disney, or... Because Ford vs. Ferrari came out under them, technically.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like Fox or something, so technically that counted.
Oh my gosh.
You had Endgame, highest grossing ever, Rise of Skywalker, which wasn't great but made a lot of money. Aladdin made a ton of money somehow. So like all these movies, Toy Story 4, and you're looking at the charts, and it's like... Oh,
it's all Disney, right?
Everything
Star
except
Wars.
Joker was owned by Disney. In 1917. It was like those two were in all Disney movies.
Dude, that is crazy, man. Yeah, Bob Iger, for whatever you want to say about him, he did an excellent job with the studio side of things. And I think you saw a lot of that bleed over into the parks.
Yeah, a lot of synergy.
A lot of synergy, yeah. And while I think sometimes that's not for the best synergy, they definitely have done a lot of good things with it. And yeah, I'm really thankful for all the new stuff we've gotten in the last 5 years. I mean, since, I guess you can say Pandora or New Fantasyland.
Yeah, New Fantasyland, because Seven Dwarfs. And again, Seven Dwarfs was like the coolest thing for a minute in 2013. And then, you know, what happened? No one cares.
Right. And it's just so weird. Like, you compare that to, let's say, when did Soarin' come out? Was that like
Like
05?
originally? Yeah,
Like in Epcot, when did it debut?
I think like 05.
Like 05. Okay. So if you go, like, Everest was 2006.
Six.
So those were a good 2 years. But then from Everest on to New Fantasyland, what was there? Nothing, basically, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah.
So you compare those years to, like, the years that we've gotten recently. It's really incredible.
Yeah, and I was glad. I think I'm sad overall for things being canceled in Epcot because it was like finally Epcot was getting the love it deserved.
That's
Because
true.
I think in this boom of like from New Fantasyland on,
Mm-hmm.
it was like every park was getting some new really cool thing.
Mhm.
And making the case to be all full day parks because you know people used to be like Animal Kingdom, that's a half day park.
Right.
Hollywood Studios, that's half day.
Which they're
So-
not anymore.
Not anymore, no. Rise of the Resistance has made it impossible to be a half day park.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Literally
yeah,
impossible.
like you live there all day. But
Yeah.
so it was nice to see Epcot was getting the love it deserved, and
I
at
know.
least like becoming modernized. And you know, we have nostalgic feelings towards Future World.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember walking around there at night one time, you know, after the news came out, they were changing everything. And I was like, you know what? It's about time because this stuff looks really dated.
It's straight out of the
In,
80s, right?
not, yeah, out of the 80s, but not in like the good way. Not in the trendy way that it is now, in the way of like, wow, this building has really been here for 30 plus years.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the shape of everything,
Yeah.
too, is like...
The carpet was like gross and,
Yeah.
you know.
Which they demolish those buildings, so they have to do something
Gotta
with
do
it.
something.
So one way or the other, we're going to get an improvement over whatever was there before.
I'm cool with the 80s aesthetic, but just like make it the cool,
Right.
you know, like
Yeah.
like Stranger Things kind of.
Right, I'd be fine with
Lots of
that.
neon and whatever, but there's a difference between like 80s feel and this building is
Literally.
Really,
Yeah. So I think I hear you. It is really sad that they're canceling a lot of these projects, and but I still think that we're gonna get some good stuff out of it either way because they're gonna have to do something with it. So what do you think? Diving into like full on Epcot mode here. What do you think are like the best strengths of the park, weaknesses of the park? Like, what do you think they can improve on, and what do you think's like the best?
So the best right now, current state.
Yeah, like 2020 Epcot.
Okay. So right now, if you went like today,
Mhm.
World Showcase still, I think is a strength. Just the immersion of being able to walk around all the countries. There is a lot for kids to do there, even though it doesn't seem that way. But the KidCot stations is at least something.
True.
You know, they're like coloring pages or little crafts and stuff, and
Yeah.
I know that's cool. And then there's, you know, Frozen, people love. But I think World Showcase is a strength, and right now I would say Future World is probably the weakness, just because to me the rides are kind of forgettable in comparison to other rides at other parks.
I agree. I totally
Um,
agree.
I mean, we've even talked about before, like sometimes I forget Test Track is a ride until
Yeah.
I'm in Epcot and I walk past it and I'm like, oh yeah,
It's weird. Like, it's a good ride.
it's good.
But there's something about it that, it doesn't,
It's just forgettable.
yeah. And, I don't know exactly what... Mission Space is kind of the same way.
Yeah, you never think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never heard of people like, when you say like, oh, you're going to Disney, what are you so excited about? No one's ever
Mission
like,
Space.
yeah, Test Track, boy. Like, no.
Well, I think those things kind of get overshadowed by the real strengths of Epcot, which I think, like you were saying, is festival season mainly. That's like the
Right.
big strength of Epcot. And I think Festival Epcot is so awesome. It's so full of energy. Everyone there is
Everyone's
there.
excited.
Everyone,
Yeah.
and I love the fact that there's always like a festival at Epcot.
Yeah.
I don't mind that.
I like it.
Me too. I've heard,
Especially with like Festival of the Arts, adding that.
yes.
I love that one.
I've heard that as like kind of a complaint, like, oh, there's always festivals, like what?
Yeah.
But that's kind of the point of EPCOT. The point of EPCOT is like we're celebrating the world, we're celebrating culture, we're celebrating technology. Yeah, like it makes sense that you have all these festivals all year long. I think the Festival of the Arts is awesome.
That's my favorite one.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm. It's become my favorite.
Yeah, that one's super good. The Flower and Garden Festival is so much fun. I love that butterfly tent that they have.
And Food and Wine is,
Food and Wine
legendary.
classic.
Yeah.
Like it's so great.
But you know who complains about festivals all year round?
Who?
Florida residents. I've never heard out of state
Really?
or guests. Whenever I hear people complain about it, it's Florida residents.
That's really. Why do you think that is?
I don't know, because we're here all the time. But I think, like, as a guest, if I was coming from, like, Chicago or whatever,
Yeah.
I'll be stoked to know, like, oh, anytime we come, there's some kind of festival going on.
And I've heard.
Besides the summer, but.
Yeah, which they'll probably change at some point.
I mean, there's Food and Wine going on right now. So.
Right. I've heard stories of people just coming to Walt Disney World just for Food and Wine. Like, that's the main reason they're coming.
I know people that they're not into the theme parks at all, but Food and Wine, they go every year.
Right. So I think to go back to our point about Test Track and Mission Space, mostly all the rides in Epcot, I think they get overshadowed by these festivals. And maybe that's understandable because the festivals really are what bring people in. And, I think Disney can sort of coast by on being like, well, the focus of Epcot is these festivals, so they don't really put a lot into the marketing of like the attractions.
Yeah.
So
and the festivals are an attraction in themselves.
Yes.
You're paying for the food at the booths, but
yes,
it's just something different than what we always do at theme parks,
which
I
is
think is why people like it.
Yeah, that is for me the biggest strength of Epcot is just the uniqueness of it. And for us, I get that it's not this way for younger people, but for us being in our 20s, Epcot is literally a park that you can go to, not ride a single ride, not do a single attraction, and just enjoy the ambiance, have a nice meal, have a drink. Especially if it's festival season, you're gonna enjoy it, you don't even have to do any rides. It'll still be a fun day. You can't say the same thing about any other theme park.
Because any other theme park, if you rode, let's say you're there open and close at Epcot, and you ride 2 rides, that's a great day.
Yes.
Any other theme park, you're going to guest relations and griping because, you only rode 2 things. Are you kidding me? Like, nowhere else is that okay.
Right.
But I think too, like with the festivals, it's not only just the food, like there's so much entertainment. Festival of the Arts, we went to a lot of the like Broadway singer shows, which was actually really cool. Because like Flower and Garden and Food and Wine, they'll have like old bands, or even some newer acts too. But so for Festival of the Arts, they had these Broadway singers come and they would sing like Disney songs.
Oh my
These people on Broadway are amazing
awesome.
singers. And it's like a free concert. You're seeing real Broadway actors on stage. It's incredible. You got the guys drawing on chalk on the ground. So like so many unique things.
That is true. Do you think Epcot, taking into consideration all the festivals and stuff, do you think Epcot is maybe like the best valued park? Because you get so much. Especially if there's a festival going on. Like you said, you can see a concert. You have access to all these food and drink stands. Like, there's so much you can do.
I would say so, especially with the concerts, because it's sometimes like good people.
Right.
Like one time I was with my dad and we were eating in the quick service at America, and we didn't know who was playing that night in the theaters, right across from there.
Yeah.
And we walk out after our meal, and I was like, "Is that Journey?" And Journey.
Are you serious?
Concert. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So we watched Journey, and I was like, "That's cool." Wasn't expecting that, and we got to watch a free Journey concert. Like, I don't know, where else can you do that?
Dude, they really like the festivals. It's just and the thing I think also at Epcot, there's so much like I don't know if you'd say like surprise and delight, but like there's so much that you aren't expecting when you go to the parks that you get. Like there's so many little entertainment acts that go on in the countries. Like,
right.
probably more so than any other park. You just walk through the World Showcase and you'll be like, oh shoot, like what is this show going on in Morocco right now? Like,
yeah,
there's so much of that, and I think all those like little things add up. And I think for me, probably for both of us, that's what makes EPCOT so special. Is just those moments.
I agree. All the little things. Yeah, and just like being able to see the cultures, and when the international program is going on, talk to cast members from those countries, which they always have interesting things to say.
Oh yeah.
I remember, I don't know if you were there, but I was with one of our friends in the pizzeria in Italy, and we were talking to her about like, is this accurate? And she told us like all about how they make pizza in the different regions in Italy.
That's so
and
cool.
It's really cool because she was from Naples, and she's like, yeah, this style is how we do it, but over here they do it different, or, you know, it's just like, you wouldn't get that at a pizza joint.
That is just so cool. And like, where else do you get that just in life, you know?
Yeah, that you just, someone randomly starts telling you.
Yeah, like, where else do you get, like, sometimes I guess if you go to, you know, they have like, I went to like a Japan festival in Houston when I was living there for a little while.
Very cool.
And so, you know, you get sort of like that, but, which was awesome by the way, but where do you get like all of these countries? Because there's like, what, 12?
Yeah.
I think.
And not only getting to talk to someone from the country, but feeling like you're there because of the environment.
Right.
Like a festival's fun, but I assume it was in a park or
something. It was in a park, yeah.
Right. So it didn't look like Japan.
Right. In the Japan Pavilion at EPCOT, you have like the architecture and people playing the drums. That's so true.
And I know people like make fun. They're like, oh, you know, just because you've been to EPCOT, it's not the same. And yeah, it's not the same. Like, we both traveled internationally.
Right.
I obviously know the French Pavilion is not like France.
Right.
But hey, not everybody can go travel abroad all the time.
Right.
And it's cool that in a morning I can walk around all these countries and get a croissant for breakfast and ramen for lunch, and you know,
it's I mean, first of all, not everyone has the means to travel.
It's expensive.
It is, and second of all, even if you do have the means to travel, you're not going to travel to like 12 countries in the span of a month, a week, a day. Surely not.
I mean, you were a flight attendant. You probably, how many countries have you been to?
Right.
In the time that you worked, like you didn't do it in a week.
No, and I mean, I've been to a lot of places, but surely not in the span of like a short amount of time being able to go to all these places.
Yeah.
And I will say, just the places that I've traveled to, I think the World Showcase is very, very accurate. It's not 100% accurate, but I think it's very accurate. In a world where Disney could have sort of just phoned it in and just been like, kind of like, I hate to keep griping on the Norway stuff, but kind of like they did with Frozen. It's like, it's kind of like Norway. No, like most of the pavilions are like very accurate and
very respectful.
Very respectful,
like, to their traditions.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. I think the number one thing about World Showcase is the cast members, the international program, which is why it's so sad that they're not doing that right now.
Yeah,
because that,
you know, it makes sense, but
well, because they can't do it.
You can't come here.
It adds so much to that park, and it's something that you kind of don't realize how like much that adds until you're actually there. Like, you don't really think about it that much, but
it adds to the immersion in like such a real way. Yes,
a very authentic, genuine way.
And they're always so happy to like talk to you about their country, and you know, it's cool. A lot of the food I've eaten in World Showcase, as far as the countries I've been to, it's pretty accurate.
Mm-hmm. It is fairly accurate, yeah.
Sometimes the quick service isn't as accurate, but that's because they have to whip up like a million things in an hour. But at the table service, for sure.
Yeah, and I would say Epcot has the best food out of any
Oh,
park.
easy.
When you say?
Every time I think about my favorite like in-park meals, it's always at Epcot. I think Satuli Canteen might be the one like out of Epcot that I put in my top.
That's a good restaurant, yeah. But yeah, if you would ask me top 5, even top 10 restaurants at Disney World, they're almost all in Epcot.
Or Disney Springs.
Disney Springs,
would be a third party. So if you ask me like Disney owned, yeah, Epcot.
Yeah. So it's, and at least we got that. Like all the pavilions don't have attractions, but they all have food and very good food. So
yeah,
I guess for in terms of weaknesses, I don't know. Obviously, I think me more than you. I wish they would stop putting a bunch of characters in there. Like I understand it in some ways, and I think that it's probably for the best in a lot of places, but I do kind of wish they would focus more on like, okay, let's build a new pavilion and World Showcase.
Right, which I think would bring just as many people.
Definitely,
especially come festival time.
Yeah,
I mean, you're not telling me people wouldn't flock for a Brazilian steakhouse.
Exactly.
It would be the new Ohana. You wouldn't get a reservation.
Right. No, definitely not.
So I agree.
Like you said, I think Future World is kind of
falls flat.
It does. It's not very good.
Yeah. I think for me, when I think about like strong versus weak parks, I think about if I wasn't a fan, this is my first time in like 10 years, and looking at a park and having no nostalgia, and I think that's where you can really see like, is this park objectively good or not?
Yeah.
And that's where Epcot, I think, struggles without the nostalgia and removing, like if you came in a normal summer when there's no festival, I could see where that would be a park that might not be the top favorite of everybody in the family.
Yeah.
Whereas, the other 3 objectively are really great.
Right.
Jam-packed with lots of things to do for everybody.
I see. Yeah, well, Epcot for sure is the most niche park, I would say. It's like,
right.
It's very specific to, if you like world travel and technology, you'll like it. But if not, for animal
some people don't like world travel.
And well, yeah, I guess that's kind of true.
Or like trying new, because I always am like, why would you eat in America? But there's some people who like they don't want to try. Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So those kind of people probably would enjoy other parks at Disney more. Right. And I think you can say like Animal Kingdom's kind of the same way, but not as much. I don't think.
It probably gives off that vibe at first that like, oh, I'm not really into animals. Am I gonna like this?
But I think
when you go, you would realize.
Yeah, but I think if you don't like, if you're not too into animals, right, in like animal exhibits, I think there's more for you to enjoy at Animal Kingdom than if you aren't big into travel than there is to enjoy at Epcot.
Right. And if it's a day where you're like, I'm not really wanting to spend a lot of money trying food from all over the world, there's probably more for you to do at the other parks.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not. Epcot's not all great. There's definitely some weak points to it.
I think it's a locals park. I know, like since moving to Orlando a couple years ago, I found myself going there more and more. For that reason of like I can go there and not ride a ride and still have fun.
That's true. It is a locals park for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we would visit the other parks a lot, but like if you could pull stats on how many times I scanned into a park, Epcot would be like so many more times.
Really? Yeah, it's great because like for locals, we've done all the rides and attractions, and it's like I don't need to ride a ride today. I'll get some good food.
I mean, like around. That's where I would meet people for lunch. Like on my days off.
Exactly.
Like, tomorrow, do you want to get Chinese at Epcot? I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Why go to the mall and get Chinese when I can go to Epcot?
Right. It was probably better at Epcot anyways.
Yeah, and it's a nice atmosphere.
Yeah. So, I guess the last thing, one question I want to ask you as we wrap this up about Epcot. Do you think, because there is a lot of nostalgia for old Epcot, for Epcot Center, just from like, you know, this shirt that I bought in like 2017 is based off of an old logo. And there's just so much nostalgia for the old Epcot. Do you think that some of that is like, we're just looking back on it with, what's the expression, rose-colored
glasses?
Do you think there's some of that at play, or do you think it really was that good?
So, not ever experiencing 80s Epcot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, first of all, I like that the old logo and stuff is coming back.
I do too.
So I think in that way, because that like retro aesthetic is kind of cool now, that's awesome, and that will probably carry over to like the future world changes and stuff.
Yeah.
So that I think was good about Epcot. That cool, like that's still a futuristic looking logo and emblem. That being said, regardless of your feelings on rides that Disney has taken down, usually when they take down rides, if you take off the rose-colored glasses, great movie ride included because I loved it. But when I take them off and I look and I go, yeah, that ride probably needed to go. Or at least be updated because it wasn't to the standard of other theme park rides in the park. Like, not every old ride is Pirates. It's just not going to last for
That's
a million
true.
years. So, that being said, sometimes I look at old Epcot things and I go, well, was it really that good? Because why did they tear it down then? If so many, like Maelstrom, dude. I enjoyed it, but it had 5-minute waits on the regular.
You are right, and it pains me to admit that, but you're right. Frozen is more popular, and it's definitely going to bring in more people.
And more people have come and it worked, so, you know, and everybody claims that these rides that they tear down are their favorites. Well, why was the line so short? Because Haunted Mansion is people's favorites, and it pulls lines.
Yeah, same with Pirates.
Pirates, Tower of Terror. Like,
Space Mountain.
Yeah, the favorites pull lines.
Yeah.
Universe of Energy. We went on it the last day, or like the last week or something.
We did. I think it was the last day.
I think it was the last day, and there was like not that many people.
No. Yeah, that is true, and I guess a lot of people's argument though is for some of the Epcot stuff I know they sort of got rid of because they lost their sponsorship.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the other stuff was just like Maelstrom because they didn't bring any people. Like, it had 5-minute waits.
It was a weird ride. I liked it because it was weird, but I mean, you go back and watch a ride through, and you're like, that was weird.
It was weird, but it was weird in that like 80s Disney way. So there's not that many rides left that had that like weird Disney, old Disney feel to them.
Right, like Spaceship Earth still has it, and that one's cool, and it's genuinely cool.
Well, yeah, and that one has 30-minute, 40-minute waits.
Yeah, especially festival season. Because the building it's in is so cool.
Yeah, and that ride is just so... I mean, it's so much better than a Maelstrom or a Universe of Energy.
Right.
Which makes sense.
Universe of Energy felt like elementary school for me. Like the videos they make you watch. Because Bill Nye, you know.
Yeah, Bill Nye, Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah.
It was in desperate need of a facelift. And... yeah, regardless of what you think about Guardians going there, I think it'll be a good ride. So.
Yeah, I mean, but actually the only thing that I've seen from old Epcot that I really, really wish that we still had, and I don't know why it was taken down, is that rainbow tunnel in the Imagination Pavilion.
Oh, yeah!
Michael Jackson took a picture in and stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool. And I don't know why they got rid of that.
Well, wasn't it they got rid of the original version of the ride, right?
Yeah, and now the top is like a DVC line. Which
of course it is.
Like,
of course it is.
I should make it a dance party and a DVC lounge.
Everything's a DVC something. Yeah. Oh, but yeah, there's definitely some stuff. Horizons, obviously, I wish they would have kept Horizons, but you know, it was. I think there were a lot of other problems with Horizons. It was built on a sinkhole. They pulled their sponsorship, whoever it was. But yeah, man, Epcot 2020. It's in bad shape because of all the construction, but I think we probably won't get the version of it that we were promised originally. but I think we'll still get some good stuff out of the new EPCOT.
It'll be better than it was.
Yeah, it'll be better than like 2014 EPCOT, I guess. 2000 this decade. Yeah. Anything else you want to add about EPCOT? I think
not really.
It's
I feel bad we kind of trashed on it. I really do love it.
I really do love it. Well, we gave it a lot of praise too.
We
were pretty fair on it.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, we're fair.
Yeah, it's somehow both like it has some of the best stuff and some of the worst stuff in Disney. I think.
If we said it was like one of the best parks in Orlando, that would be a lie.
Yeah. Sadly, I think it's
objectively.
It's definitely a locals park. It's definitely if you enjoy travel, if you enjoy learning about world history, you're going to like it a lot more than the average guest. If you don't, probably stick to Magic Kingdom or Hollywood Studios. But yeah, I think we're pretty fair on it. It's a great park. It's the one that we probably visit the most.
Yeah.
And
it's the hangout park.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they do with it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that about wraps it up.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks for watching as always, and leave us a comment below your favorite part about EPCOT, favorite World Showcase Pavilion, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.